Well, hello and welcome to my channel. With the success of my Neptunian figure, I thought I'd try another, I guess, original Mego figure from Star Trek, and that's the Keeper. So that's what I'm going to be working on today. As with all the heads that I get from Dr. Mego, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I clean off any residue that's left over after the casting process, to make sure that the paint sticks pretty well. It's very slick here. I don't know how well this wash I'm planning on using is going to work, but we'll see. Maybe I can... Yeah, it's very slick up here. I don't know how that's going to work, but we'll find out. Usually I save the wash for last, but this time I'm going to start with the wash. And I'm starting with a Drakenhoff Nightshade, or Drakenhoff Nightshade. It's going to give me a blue color. Hopefully it's not too dark. So let's take a look at this and see how it looks on the model. This may be a little darker than I wanted, but I'm going to cover the head and see what it looks like after I get it done. Because I can always go back and I can touch things up, or even if I want to just completely erase it, I can use my toothbrush to take the color off. Yeah, this head is very slick, and this wash is just not sticking very well. But I want to make sure I give it a shot, so you can see it's filling in those crevices, which is a good thing. But if I remember correctly, the Keeper's head was kind of like a grayish blue. And it was really kind of subtle. So let's take a look and see. It's pooling where I really don't want it to pool. It's not sticking where I want it to stick. That looks like a mess, doesn't it? Let's see if I can bring some of it over here. Kind of spread it around. See if that makes a difference. Because the sculpt has some really good detail to it. You can see these cranial ridges. Look pretty cool. Well, let's see. 1978 Paramount Pictures. I guess they used the end credit alien bust as kind of like the inspiration for this figure. It's just not working, is it? It just looks terrible. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take it off and start again. Well, you can see I was able to get it off. Luckily, I bought a contrast while I was at the game store too. I've got this Space Wolves Gray. I'm going to try that and see if that... It's supposed to be a little bit thicker, so maybe that'll work. Let's see. I got this from... the manager of the store kind of recommended it. I told him what I would be doing, and he said, "Oh, we'll try this. You know, this is like the latest thing. It's kind of like a wash, but it's a little bit thicker." So they have a greater selection of these colors in these contrast paints. I guess they're new, and so you'll find a better selection of color. But look, it looks like I'm still getting that same sort of runny effect. Yeah, that looks awful. I'm tempted to let it dry and see what happens, but I might ruin the head. Yeah, it's very similar to a wash. The consistency is pretty much the same. I don't see any difference. see it pooling. You know what, it might be the sculpt. It's just a little too slick, you know. I did clean off any sort of like residue that they had to release the head. Yeah, it looks awful, doesn't it? I don't know what I'm gonna do. Try getting rid of some of it and see if that helps. Yeah, it looks terrible. All right, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get rid of this one as well. Well, I have my figure wrapped in some, I guess, cellophane tape. So I'm gonna try spraying it with a coat of some paint that I have and see if that works. Actually, this color looks good. All right. I'm gonna let that dry and see what happens. Well, I decided to go with a more original look, and so I'm painting his eyes red. I'll be painting, I guess, the rest of the eye white afterwards, but this is going to give it a kind of, I guess, outlined effect. So that's what I'm doing now. It looks like the color of the paint is actually pretty good, and it should accept the wash pretty readily. So hopefully that works out. This is at a bad angle though for some reason. I'm gonna make sure I get them even. Well, that's looking pretty good. I think I got it. Okay, and I'm ready to paint the whites on top of that when it dries. Yep, looking good. In the original, his mouth was kind of red, but what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this flesh tone and put that in his mouth instead. And then I'll work on the teeth. So I'm going to trace around the mouth with this flesh tone on the inside mostly. I'm not going to have it come out as much as it was on the original. Just enough to cover the mouth. This is an interesting figure. I never had the keeper. I understand it's really difficult to find him in his outfit. You know, in a pristine outfit, and it can be expensive if you do. So maybe this might be an option for some of you guys who wanted the keeper, but you know, don't want to shell out $100 and something bucks for a vintage one. But apparently he had mind powers and he was a big threat to the Enterprise. So, I mean, he'd be a cool character to have. You know, if not for your collection, you know, maybe for some of your displays, or I don't know if anybody still plays with their Megos. I mean, I like to set them up, and I don't play with them like I did when I was a kid, though. But I do like to set them up in really interesting little, I guess, vignettes. Oops, I think I missed. Get that before it dries. That's a good thing about these paints, these acrylic paints. If you make a mistake, you can get to it and clean it up rather quickly. Oops. Yeah, how did I make this mess? Alright. I think I am done with the mouth. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry out. I'm gonna go back to the eyes. So you can see how those that red is just gonna be like an outline for the eye itself. And I'm painting the actual eye inside of that, so I can get that effect that the original figure had like a red outline. So that's the red outline. Now I'm going to work on the iris. Once that, not the iris, the pupil. Once that dries, once those irises dry. I'm going to be using an off-white, like an antique white for the teeth. I'm not going to be coloring the entire thing because I'm going to be using kind of a wash in just a bit. But I am just covering the tips of the teeth with that antiqued white. All right, I'm going to get back to the eyes in just a sec. So for the eye, I'm going to start up at the top, and I'm going to bring it down. Looks pretty good. I'm going to try the wash next. I'm using a very, very diluted wash because it's just not sticking the way I wanted it to. So I'm just highlighting those areas, like the creases of the necks here, just so I can get those, I guess, vertebrae. And I'm going to get the occipital part of the skull here. I'm going to transfer those lines so that they're a little more noticeable, and color his ears. But I'm going to keep it pretty much very subdued, because this is not sticking the way that I wanted it to. So hopefully I get a good effect when I'm done. Yeah, you can see it's like barely any of the wash is being applied to the figure. I have about a 50-50 solution of water and wash. My dog barking. I think that's going to be it for the keeper. I'm going to go ahead and do a little touch up on his cheeks and highlight little areas, but I'm going to let that dry first. What I'm going to do now is I took some white paint and mixed it in with some of the wash, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a brushing, like a dusting actually, of his cheeks and some of the places that need to be have a little bit lighter color to them, like the nose and the eyebrows and parts of the head that may have gotten a little too muddied by the wash. Oh, that's actually working. Let me try that chin. It's not really a dry brush. It's just more of a dusting. I'm just using very little paint. Just kind of blending it. That's looking a lot better. See, it's getting rid of those splotchy parts. Actually looking pretty good now. Still have some splotches, but they're not that bad. And I'm not losing that paint color from the spray can. Just kind of enhancing what's there. Yeah, that's looking really good. You can see how it'll take those splotchy parts and kind of like bring them down. But I'm still maintaining some of those the darkened areas, you know, that the wash provided for us. But yeah, that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to let him dry and see how he looks. I wanted to put some of this Drakenhoff Flesh Shade in his mouth. You know, to kind of add some detail in his mouth. That looks good, right? And that's the way the wash is supposed to work, but I guess the sculpt is very smooth, and the paint I used was not, you know, it was a satin, so the wash is going to have a little more difficulty attaching to that. But actually looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and let him dry, and we'll take one more look at him before I cover his head with that matte spray to protect the paint job. You know, in retrospect, I would have done things differently. You know, I would have probably started with a like a blue-gray spray paint and primed the head. You know, because the white base just didn't work for this figure. You know, I use the color of the sculpt usually as, like, you know, the canvas for what I'm putting the paint on, but this time it just didn't work. The head was a little too slick, and cleaning it off just didn't help. So if you were going to tackle this, I would recommend priming it with a light blue-gray spray paint, and then just dry brushing like a white on there. You know, and then doing the eyes last and the mouth last, I guess. And then, you know, maybe a wash would stick to it, but I think that's probably the best way to tackle this. I think I was able to save it, though. It doesn't look bad at all, but this is a difficult one to do, you know, and I'm not 100% pleased with what happened. And I don't know how much of an instructional video this is going to be, maybe on what not to do, right? But I still think he looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and protect what paint job I have on here with my clear enamel, and I'm going to get him dressed up and see if that changes anything. Well, here's my keeper fully outfitted. I got this robe off of Classic TV Toys, the boots also from Classic TV Toys, but the jumpsuit that he's wearing, the little bodysuit, I actually got from Dr. Mego. I believe it's the Andorian bodysuit, and you can see that together they look great, right? I believe the old robe came from Space 1999 alien figure, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments, right? But I believe that this ensemble looks really good. You know, this robe here is just, you know, it screams space to me. And you can see that I was able to clean up the head pretty well. So it actually came out really well. It came out really good. The eyes look great. The mouth looks great. It really has that kind of, like, I guess, old school flair, you know, of the keeper, but in an updated form. So really, really pleased with him. Here is my Neptunian. Just in comparison, I got my two aliens there. You can see that the shade worked really well on this figure, but did not work on this one. I think just because the head sculpt was very smooth. You can see that I was able to, I did manage to get the shade into the recesses, and it ended up looking pretty cool. But, you know, I had a lot of difficulty doing it, and as I said earlier, just probably the best way to handle this is to use that that paint, that vintage blue paint, spray paint, as the base for the figure, and just kind of paint around that. You know, after you put the base coat down, maybe do a little bit with the shade. Then do the eyes and the mouth, and you should be okay. You know, you can blend the colors as necessary, but I think that would probably be the best way to approach this. But anyway, until next time, I hope you guys have some fun with your Megos, and I'm looking forward to being with you guys again. Y'all take care now. Bye-bye.